do this. Hello, my name is Spencer Hales. I'm here with the Tech Transfer Entrepreneurship Series. I'm here with
Ken Meyers.
Ken Meyers. And so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about GoReact, a company that Ken founded with the Tech Transfer Office. We'll be kind of running through the process, just how he created the company, and kind of the nitty-gritty details of what goes into it. So, how did you find GoReact?
It's an interesting story. I've been in tech my whole career, and I had left the last company that I was at and actually was looking to take a little bit of a break. So I came down and was talking to some folks at the business school, talked to the entrepreneurship program, also had connected with Dr. Bill Baker, who's now retired, but he was the program director for MCOM, Management Communication, which, as you guys know, that's like everybody has to take it. And
There's
like
classes,
40 sections a semester, I think, or
Oh
something.
my gosh.
So there's so many. And in the course of our conversations and me looking at maybe teaching a class, my undergraduate was in communication, so that's kind of, have a little sweet spot for that.
Yeah, I get you.
And so talking to him, he had kind of got me on track to maybe teach a section, and then it turns out that they had tried to solve a problem of just getting more technology for helping to facilitate and scale feedback for the oral presentation component of MCOM. It takes a lot of coaching and practice and things like that to get good at your presentation skills. And so they had worked with actually BYU's Center for Teaching and Learning and had developed a piece of software there to solve that problem. And it was interesting, as I heard Dr. Baker describe the story to me, he said that he had gone to the CTL and asked about, hey, do you have anything that helps you do kind of video coaching, lets us record and give feedback? And they said, we don't, but you're like the third department to ask for something like that.
Oh, okay.
So starting to feel like there was a trend here and they could probably solve the problem. They went to work, developed out kind of a basic software product for that. And Dr. Baker had just piloted it in his own sections and now had invited me to a meeting with all the other adjuncts and all the faculty that were teaching MCOM to learn how to use this. And he had called it React. As any good professor does, they have an acronym.
Yeah,
right. So
I get you.
it was real-time audience critique technology. That was what React stood for.
Man, I would have just thought React.
No, that was kind of like but it actually worked, right? Because that's what you're doing is you're reacting to whatever it is that you're seeing. And so I went to this meeting and with all these other faculty, and having done kind of been in SaaS and software for the last couple of decades, by the time this was done and I saw how to use the software and how easy it was just to record and give comments and just basically apply in many ways the concept of game film that we've been using in sports for decades to other kinds of skill disciplines, my head was just kind of spinning with, there are so many places that this could be used.
You can use this.
Right, it's not just for public speaking. And so I asked Bill after the meeting, I said, so have you thought about commercializing this at all? He goes, Ken, I'm retiring in a year, so haven't even thought about it. But I wasn't going to teach for the next little bit because this was, I want to say, February or March. So
timeline kind of perfect.
And honestly, I was a little bit bored, so.
Oh, okay, so that always works too.
Right, so I was like, well, let me just scratch this itch here and go do some market research. And I'd been around the block enough to know kind of how to assess product market fit and see, okay, is there a fit here? Will people pay for it? And what other kinds of use cases might come into play for this same kind of technology? And it didn't take very long for me to be convinced that it had legs. So then I had to kind of find out, so how do I do this? And that's where I got introduced to the Tech Transfer Office.
Gotcha.
And they kind of said, okay, here's how it works. And they were so good to work with, honestly. I thought it was going to be a lot more difficult.
Oh, yeah. No,
especially when you deal with, just institutions. It's not a knock on BYU. It's institutions of this size anywhere. There's just overhead and red tape and everything else. And they were just fabulous to work with. It was very entrepreneurial in terms of, and it was, I felt like they kind of give you terms of a deal essentially to acquire the technology or license it or whatever. And it was very fair and friendly, and I mean, I've been in a lot worse negotiations before.
Yeah.
So it was great. Like, we just had it done very quickly, and we acquired the technology, and we have a deal to give it back to service BYU, you know, at a discounted rate, and all kind of the church entities and things like that.
Oh, that's nice.
But you know, that was the start, and by, you know, our goal that fall was to just service BYU and make sure we didn't break it. And then we went and got some pilots in the spring, and then at some other universities, you know, I think it was 8 pilots that we had. And then kind of fall 2012 is when we started to open up the market, and here we are today. We're in 700 plus institutions, and it's used in so many different ways. We have, I don't know, a couple of dozen at least customers over in Europe now.
Dang. Overseas, I like
overseas, yeah, and it's it's kind of the #1 product being used in public speaking classes, and that's in connection. Now we have big partnerships with some of the textbooks like McGraw-Hill and Macmillan. So GoReact just comes with those.
Oh, okay. So like permission ad. And stuff
you
like
get
that?
yeah, you get the class, and it's like, here's the class, and here's like 5 GoReact assignments that go with it. So that's just kind of embedded in that, and now we're in teacher prep programs. My daughter just finished an elementary ed degree here.
And you're like, hey,
use it. She did. She used it in I don't know, 6 or 7 of her classes probably.
Dang.
Like through the student teaching process and everything else, and it's super, super helpful. And you know, and now we just figured out this past fall that I think 20% of the teachers that are graduating today in the United States are now going through a GoReact program.
That is big. Like, that is an extremely big program. Did you ever think it would be this big? Like, did you have the potential idea?
I mean, you do. You feel like you can go there, but it, you know, it takes. There's just a lot of rough sledding at the beginning.
Yeah.
To be honest, one of the things that I've discovered is that I probably won't start another company on my own again, because I'm not sure how great a fit I am as an entrepreneur.
Oh, really?
And here's why I say that. We're at a stage now with, you know, 50 employees and you know, a bunch of million in revenue and things like that, where we're scaling, and that's what I do well. I've been mostly a career more in the operations, like a COO type. So I can make sure everything is operating well and scaling well, but to really get off the ground, it feels like you need 2 major components. You need to have somebody who's super invested on the technical side, and you know, making sure that your product is amazing, and then you have to have kind of a founder who is you know, that chief evangelist.
Right. Outgoing.
Right, and I'm not that.
I don't know. I don't really see that. It's good. It's good. Like, you got good energy.
I appreciate that. I think you have to ask yourself, when there's a lot of things to do, what do you run home to mama to?
Yeah, I get you.
That helps you understand yourself. And I run home to organizing. I don't run home to, like, I got to contact 10 more people.
Yeah. Like, oh
right?
man, I'm so excited to do more work. Like,
right. So I tend to, I don't have sort of that raw DNA of that chief evangelist. And you have to have that. I think we have gotten where we have, in spite of me, over the first period of time. Like, I think the first 4 years of our existence, or maybe even 5, could have been done in half the time.
Oh.
If I was a different kind of personality.
I get you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So maybe if you had like a CEO who you guys appointed that you wanted to just specifically be like, okay, he's going to be the outgoing, he's going to be...
Yeah, your first salesperson.
Right.
Almost every successful startup has that pattern.
Gotcha.
That one founder at least is that first salesperson and evangelist, and is going out and hitting the streets and getting the business.
Tracks people to the company.
So people found us eventually, and it was just kind of a slow grind, and then we really hit our stride and took off, and that's been a ton of fun.
Yeah.
But it's those are one of the things that I learned, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like a company like that, though, you got to have some killer organization skills, like as far as, you know, assessing the software and then just figuring out how to transfer that over different channels, like having everyone, it's so accessible, you know? How did you get to that point? Like, it's just...
That's a good question. I think for me, one of the things that's been maybe part of my own personal playbook that I've developed over the last couple of decades, I guess, in different software companies, is really understanding the customer and their needs and making sure that the product delivers. And it was interesting for me in this space because we were selling software into a university classroom environment. And you guys all know Rate My Professor is a real thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And if they bring a technology in and it's just kind of a disaster,
no one's going to like it.
Right, and that brings them down, right? So you can't embarrass a faculty member, a professor, in front of their students.
Right.
And your software just has to work.
Yeah.
And it's a very low tolerance, and I think that was a good forcing function for us. That was good for us to have to deliver at that high standard.
I getcha.
To make sure that it just worked.
So you guys weren't able to do like beta testing or anything like that. You just had to do it in office and then.
It was tough, yeah.
Okay, wow.
Nobody really wants to beta test in a classroom.
Right.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay, well that's a stressful situation. I have another question. Did you have a partner when you were like bringing up the business side of things, or was it just you and then you were kind of putting yourself?
I mean, I had team members that started with me, so it's not like we were bereft of any of that.
Yeah.
And I had, probably one of the cool things was the very first hire I had to make was I had to hire the kid who wrote the software.
Oh.
Because it was a project through Center for Teaching and Learning downstairs, here in this building.
Yeah.
And he was a student developer. I don't know if you have a development job or not. But,
oh, not currently.
But that's where he was at. He was kind of a senior, I think. And so he's the one that knew the code. He'd written 80 or 90% of it. And so I had, that was my first order of business, was hire him because I would probably be in trouble if I didn't have
pretty
it.
Important,
right,
too.
Yeah. And his name was Dallin, and he was awesome. And we had a great experience kind of getting off the ground. And, we figured out ways along the way early to kind of have that relationship where he was, getting equity in the company and, participating that way, and was just super invested.
Yeah.
So it was a great partnership, and then we started to bring on, people for sales and things like that, and had some good people that just really, got us off the ground and helped us figure out where our sweet spots were.
I gotcha. So it sounds like you kind of have the process down. Could you explain exactly what steps you took? Because I know the hiring process in and of itself, it's a huge thing. What was the steps you took from tech transfer office to kind of get where you are today, in summary?
So I'd probably say, that there's just administrative things to get organized. You have to have a company, so you have to pay the lawyers, and it pays to do that right. It's not a place you want to skimp at the very start.
Yeah.
Just to make sure you're set up right and don't have some big disaster lurking or waiting to happen because you set up your company wrong later on when you want to raise money or things like that. And then make sure you have, I had to hire that first developer. So you really have to have, as core functions, you have to make the stuff and you have to sell the stuff.
Right.
And then I kind of just filled in everything in between. That was kind of my
You're
blue
acting
job.
Like that's like a small thing. Like that is.
But I mean,
everything.
That's kind of your job, and you do a lot of outsourcing in the beginning with some of those things because you don't need a full-time this or a full-time that.
Yeah.
And then you're also, depending on how you start it, you can bootstrap it if you have some resources and you have some initial customers.
Yeah.
That's really important to figure out how you can, finance what you're doing. But also there's going the route of getting seed funding and things like that, and involving investors. And that can be, if you are careful and choose wisely, then that can be a really, really helpful process along the way as well. But the most important thing really is to be relentless about nailing your product market fit. So if I had a hypothesis that this was going out and was going to fit in maybe 3 or 4 different use cases, I needed to sit down with customers and watch it being used and talk to them a lot.
Right.
And there's a book that came out from a guy that was here at BYU, and I think someone at Stanford, but called Nail It, Then Scale It, which is...
I've actually heard of that, yes.
Right. So, I mean, there's more than one book like that, but those principles, too many companies just fall on their faces because they start scaling it and they don't have it nailed.
Right.
They haven't absolutely dialed in exactly the kind of thing that makes the customers be like, oh, I have been waiting for this.
Yeah.
Right? this is solving a huge problem for me.
Yeah, and I think getting that target market too, because I know as a student, when I heard about your stuff, I actually hadn't heard of GoReact before, and I think it's still up and coming, but once people hear about it, it's like one of those things you're like, why don't we have this? Exactly. Yeah. And it's kind of overwhelming because you would think that more technologies would be like that, and I think a lot of people get discouraged because they're like, oh, there's already so many things out there. But then when you hear like, hey, something like this isn't widely available, then you kind of get that potential, that
right.
It's a good feeling. So to see something like that, it really makes me motivated, and I think it'll help a lot of our viewers too to kind of get in the groove of things. As far as entrepreneurial successes and failures, was there anything big that happened that kind of stunted the growth of the company throughout the process?
Yeah, multiple times.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I'd love to hear one.
Probably the first one was actually around this product market fit. One of the things that that I learned early is that you have to have really significant pain that you're solving. So as I've just interacted with people around the entrepreneurship kind of ecosystem here in Utah, and I've been doing this since kind of my first tech job was actually 1994 here.
Dang.
So I've watched Silicon Slopes grow up, and it's been a lot of fun. But there are a lot of times where people come up with a great idea, and they go talk to people, and they give them a lot of love about their idea. Oh yeah, that's great. But the rubber doesn't hit the road with them parting with money out of their wallet to drop it unless it solves a significant pain. And so in the process one of my early board members was a guy named Paul Alstrom, which now it just reminded me he was part of that book.
Gotcha.
So he's one of the kind of grandfathers of venture capital in Utah. And Paul really drilled into me the fact that you can't have a product and be successful if it's solving mosquito bite kind of pain. It's got to solve shark bite kind of pain.
Right.
And so one of the early things we discovered was that the original use case that GoReact was developed for public speaking was kind of, I put it in the middle of, call it like dog bite kind of pain.
Okay.
So it was good, but it still was just a little far enough onto the line of nice to have as opposed to I have to have this.
Right, you were maybe considering not doing it or
right.
something was...
So there are other ways to solve the problem just with the clipboard and writing notes or whatever, and it's really handy, and the people that use it swear by it and love it.
Yeah.
But we had to find another academic discipline that was shark bite kind of pain. And as it turns out, they found us. We were on the market that fall in 2012 for about, 2 months, and a department chair in sign language from University of, I want to say, Central Florida, or South Florida, I can't remember. Anyway, one of those schools there, she called us and was like, where have you been for the last 10 years of my life? And I was, we were thinking, well, tell us more. She says, if I'm a full-time faculty member teaching sign language, I grade about 1,000 videos a semester. And that's all the work is visual, right?
Right.
And so every student is turning in, 10, 15, maybe 20 assignments by video every semester. And they're grading those with, I don't know what.
3 or 4 TAs. And
and they're using, trying to write notes on a Word doc or something, and it's just terrible. And the fact that you could, with this product, that they could just submit their video, and the teacher could just watch the video and time code just comments, right, boom, 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 like this. Oh, your hand position's wrong here. It's very specific, and it has to be for sign language. It's not like, good job, try better eye contact. That's not it. It's like, that's the wrong sign for horse.
Yeah.
Right? So that became now our first kind of shark bite kind of pain, and it's not a huge market, but we just went through it like wildfire, and in 4 years, we were in 80 or 90% of the programs.
Dang.
So today, if somebody calls us in sign language is like, oh, we don't use you, we're like, have you lived under a rock?
Have you looked at
right? It doesn't happen anymore. But that was kind of a down and then an up of saying, okay, our product market fit was decent for this one, but this was a good shark bite thing. And then the next one that we found was really around student teaching, and the fact that it takes all this travel to go see your student teachers, and they could be teaching it in Timbuktu, and they're going and bringing clipboards and don't have great evidence of or opportunity for them to do some self-reflection as a student teacher, and GoReact just solves several big problems, including a travel budget problem.
Yeah.
That allows, my daughter would just put up her phone in the back of the classroom, record what she was doing, like a 30-minute math lesson to some third graders or something, and then she would get to be able to do a self-reflection on it, and her faculty advisor can give her a reflection and help her give her some pointers. And she got many more iterations of feedback that way. So I think that's an example for us of finding stronger fits and not just trying to ride the one that we were like, oh, we wish and hope and cross our fingers that this one's a good fit. You have to find shark bite pain where people see it and like, oh, yes, I have to have that.
So this idea was actually kind of more like an evolution off of your original one. So you just adapted, and then it kind of over time.
It was. In fact, the original design of the product was only for synchronous feedback.
Interesting.
So like I'm there if it's presentation day in MCOM. Did you take it yet? Oh, you're not in the.
Oh,
you're not a business major, right? So, it's presentation day, and people are just typing comments as you're recording.
Yeah.
That was use case number 1, and it actually didn't even support like uploading a video and doing it asynchronously. But the sign language use case is all like, hey, I'm submitting an assignment.
Yeah.
It's not synchronous, like I'm doing this thing in the classroom. So that was our first product adjustment, was to say, can I do this? And then they also said, I need to give video feedback, not just comments, because I need to sometimes show them. We're like, okay, well, we already do the video recording, so we'll just load that over to the feedback panel, right? But you have to make those small pivots along the way and be listening to your customers.
Right. Okay. Well, so was that like a big risk, kind of adding those things on? Was there any like technical problems going through that process too?
I'm sure there were.
But you're just kind of, oh, well.
It's been long enough now that it seems like, I'm sure we worked through all of it and figured it all out. Probably the biggest one was initially the pilots that we used, they said, we love this and we want to keep using it, but we don't have budget for it. Oh. So can we do this as a student, like a class material kind of thing? So the student can just pay, $20 or something. They didn't want it to be outrageous or anything, but so we were like, yes. Okay. Hang up the phone. Google. Okay, how do we get credit card into our into our application? So we spent that first summer actually just furiously loading up. We connected with one of the payment services, so that fall then they could go in and use it and just present the student with, here you go, here's your GoReact course, and just swipe your credit card here, and then you can buy it.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. So you guys actually scaled your process really fast then, so that's super impressive. Well, other than like Nail It, Then Scale It, is there any other books that you are like dying to talk about, like anything that you would think inspired you to kind of go through this process?
Inspired me. I mean, I think probably like you and so many other people, other entrepreneurs are people that inspire me. Just running across people who've taken those risks. I think we all see that, and it takes a lot to do that. When we started this company, it was probably a little bit insane. I was 40 years old, and we had 4 teenagers pretty much. Dang. And it's kind of, I've been working all these years, and now you have that conversation with your wife, like, so what do you think if we start a business? And she's like, so how much are we going to make? Well, pretty much nothing for a little while.
It's like, no, that's not the point.
And that's kind of, we're at that most expensive stage where everybody's in sports and doing other things, right? And so it was pretty sketchy for a little while.
Right.
And there's a lot of personal stress and things that go with that. So, on the one hand, there's some advantages from that perspective of trying something when you're young, when, the risk is low. Like, what do you have to lose? But on the other hand, I think probably something that inspired me was watching entrepreneurs who knew what they were doing. Yeah. And for me to have gone through and been involved in, even investor level and board level conversations and roles before I got here, I probably avoided a lot of dumb mistakes that I might have made if I was 25-year-old Ken.
That's the thing. You don't always want to be a student when you're starting a business. Like, previous experience helps.
And interestingly, I've read several times now that as they survey CEOs of successful companies, like founders of successful SaaS companies, the average age is around like 38 to 40. Yeah. Which is kind of interesting. It's not that you can't do it. There's still always, there's the Mark Zuckerbergs out there and everybody else.
Right, but very far and few.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but certainly, I think it speaks a little bit towards trying to get at least some experience, something under your belt before you start.
Exactly. And I think the TTO is great because it kind of mitigates a lot of the risks, but I think one of the biggest things is people should always feel like there is still the potential, even if they don't decide to go with it, right? Like, even if you wait a little bit, there's still always the potential to start a business. You know, there's always that fun, that thrill of it.
There is, and I've really gravitated towards, this wasn't, I mean, I guess that's clear here. This wasn't my idea.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like it was Bill Baker's idea, and I didn't come up with it, and over and over again, people ask me, how did you come up with this? Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
I just ran across it and decided that this was great, but now it's mine. I'm invested in it, and now it's part of my DNA, and I believe in the mission of what it's doing, what problem we're solving, and that starts with just talking to the customers and getting immersed in their world. Right. And to me, I've often thought, wow, that's amazing that I didn't know about this, but if I wanted to start a company again, like it's hard to be on the hunt for your own idea, but you have people who have done years and years of research in different fields and have come up with something that is solving a problem, and it's sitting there at the tech transfer office at here or the other schools in the state, like just waiting for somebody to pick it up that knows how to run a business.
And no one knows about the tech transfer office. That's the worst part.
Right.
So.
And I didn't, and I think, I mean, what a great head start to have something that's so far down the road on product market fit that you just have to kind of close the last mile and figure out usability and administration of like, how do I get users? And, there's those things are just so much easier to solve than, am I solving a big problem? Right. Right.
They kind of do that thinking for you.
Right. I get you. Yeah. And they're experts in their field, and they've done this for many years, and they understand the field that they developed a solution for. So
yeah, well, that's a fantastic process. I'm glad it's mitigated so much just through that. Actually, I had a question too. Was there ever any times where someone offered to like purchase your business, or was there any like buyout opportunities? Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think we were we probably had, it wasn't even $1 million, probably $200,000-300,000 in revenue, like our first year, second year. And somebody took us to lunch and wanted to buy us for, I don't know, $3 million or something. And
you're just kind of sitting there like,
I said, I feel like we're at the start of a big curve, not at the end of it.
But it's just kind of disorienting hearing that stuff sometimes.
And you think, wait, that's life-changing.
Yeah.
But we felt like we had bigger upside, and I think we're in a position now where that will be realized. So
yeah, well, that's fantastic. I'm glad the confidence in the business needs to be there too, because I think when you believe in your product and you're not really willing to sell it, you can do so much more with it than another company can do sometimes. So it's good that you stuck with it. Actually, I'm kind of at a loss here. Is there anything in particular you wanted to talk about, like any unique aspects of your business that you wanted to share, or experiences?
We talked about the founding part. I think if there's another thing that I feel like has been part of our secret sauce is that when we talk about being relentless about the product just working, there's you asked about books. There's a book written by some of the early Amazon operations guys called The Best Service is No Service. And the idea was they would relentlessly ask the question, if there was ever an interaction with a customer, why did they have to contact us in the first place? And they always measured contacts per shopping cart or contacts per dollar spent or whatever that is. And they would just find the confusion and purge the system of that confusion. So I don't know about you, but especially at this stage of life, I complete an embarrassingly large number of Amazon shopping carts every year.
Oh, I do too. I love
there's so many, right?
It's so convenient.
And I can't even... It's just, I can count on one hand over the past 10 years probably the number of times I've had to contact Amazon about anything. And they just start Johnny on the spot. But you can always figure out online yourself, like self-service, how to solve whatever your challenges. They don't make it hard. And so we've really tried to take that to heart in our company. And we are relentless about pursuing anything where we're getting inbound support contacts about, hey, I'm confused about this. Like we have to get to, we don't pat ourselves on the back for solving the support ticket and say, oh, yay for us, we supported them. We completed the ticket on the first try, and we give great service. Why were you confused? Why did you have to talk to us? that's a failure on our part. What did we screw up in the software that you couldn't complete what you were trying to do?
That's actually a very fantastic philosophy just to integrate, because I think Amazon, it's one of the biggest companies in the world,
right.
like very long-term business model. And I think just being able to get those out of the way in the beginning is such a helpful model too. Is there any other problems that have come up that have kind of gotten in the way? So like as far as the ticket system goes and getting the customer support out of the way, is there anything else that you've been trying to like really hammer down on in the beginning?
Some things are more difficult than others.
Mm-hmm.
We sell into universities, and so we're connecting into their learning management system. So integration is always, if you are in sort of an integration ecosystem where you're connecting with other systems, you're dependent a little bit on that. So we connect with Learning Suite or with Canvas or with all these other LMS systems, the learning management on the campuses. And so that takes work to just drive and iterate and drive confusion or mistakes or errors, anything out of the process, so that it's always just plug and play.
Dang. Well, you guys have just streamlined the process so much, it's almost hard to ask questions about like, oh, have you ever had any problems? Because from what I'm seeing, it usually works out. Was there anything that you've just like, up until this point, there's problems you still haven't solved or things you don't think you're ever going to solve?
Good question. I think if there's one thing actually that, I know this is going to be recorded, so I'm going on record here, but saying, I've read a little more recently kind of the notion that you should introduce a new product every 5 years or so. Mm-hmm. And here we are 10 years in and we haven't done that. And I think that that's probably, we could have grown more by doing that if we'd spent more time trying to understand what's adjacent to the problem we solve. When your customers love you, they do want to buy more stuff from you. Right. And if you can solve an adjacent problem, I feel like we're a little slow. Okay. We've been slower to get to that gate. We've been focused on just delivering excellence. And for us, it's been actually finding, first public speaking, kind of communications, and then sign language and language programs, and then teacher prep programs. And we've more recently moved into health profession programs. We have in the nursing program here at BYU uses it.
Interesting.
For practice and observation and all those things. You can imagine all the same things apply.
Right.
When they're learning complex skills that they have to be observed and get feedback on. So that's felt like something new for all of us, and we're always tackling new challenges, but we haven't actually said, okay, what's a different product?
Right.
What's adjacent? And that's that's a thing that we look back and think we should have maybe been thinking about that sooner.
I getcha.
So that's a next chapter kind of item for us.
Okay, so it's something you're maybe working to address in the future, but as of right now, we're still thinking about it. Mm-hmm. Okay, well that's fantastic. I think it's good to kind of get that perception too. There isn't always that one and done situation where it's like, okay, we figured something out, we're going to sell it for the rest of our lives, and we're going to be happy. Like, you need innovation sometimes.
Yeah, you do. Absolutely.
One more thing, this is probably going to be our final question. What advice would you have for students who are trying to start a business, as far as just what your experience has been, what you need to say?
Best advice I would give is get great mentors, be ready to take risks, know that your plan will probably reach about 50% or less of what you think it's going to do. So just be prepared. Just be prepared for that, because it takes time to iterate and nail it, right? If you consistently plan for what we sometimes call in software development even the happy path, meaning like everything worked, then you're going to find yourself perpetually disappointed. Right. Because almost always it doesn't work the way you think it will.
Yeah, I mean, like plugging the code in and then figuring out it's crap, and then you got to go back to it. But finally figuring it out, I think that's the greatest satisfaction in the world.
So that, and then going back to the nail it first. Like, don't waste or spend your money scaling something that you're not certain that you've nailed.
Right. Fantastic. All right. Well, this has been Ken Meyers with GoReact. Thank you so much, Ken.